and welcome to the Steps to Happiness show on Soulivity TV. I'm your host, Teresa Greco, happiness coach, author, editor, writer, educator, and Reiki master. Are you ready to follow your joy and tap into your inner happiness? Then the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, my guests and I explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices that can help lead you back to the happiness within you. The happiness principle for today's show is accessing our inner wisdom. We're programmed and conditioned to look outside of ourselves for answers. We're taught to ask for guidance from those around us because somehow they'll know what's always best for us to do. What do you think if I do this? Or what do you think about that? But is this belief true? Can others always know what the best thing for us to do is? Can others really know what's in our heart and why we have a certain desire for something? I don't believe they can. I believe the answers we're searching for exists within us. Our higher self, our soul self, our spiritual self holds the answers. We're taught how to connect with our physical, mental, and emotional self, but not with our physical self, which also communicates with us. And one of the ways it communicates with us is through our intuition. It can be described as that gut instinct, that inexplicable feeling we get when we need to make a decision about something. It's that internal knowing that doesn't require you to rationalize whether what you're feeling or thinking is right or not, because that feeling is so personal. No one can tell you if you're in touch with your intuition or not. You just have to know. But how can we know if what we're feeling or that little voice inside of us is in fact our higher self speaking to us? Ultimately, trusting your intuition is the act of trusting yourself. On today's show, we're going to be discussing the ways we can access our higher self and then learn how to listen to its guidance and wisdom. We're going to take a short break and I'll see you in a bit.
Hi, it's Kerry Ann here. You should try Natural Life Propolis and Manuka Spray to soothe mouth irritation, relieve symptoms of mild mouth ulcers, and also fight sore throats and the common cold. And it's an antioxidant. Always read the label and follow the directions for use.
Welcome back to the Steps to Happiness show. My guest on today's show is a guide, healer, and multidimensional channel. Simran Sondhi, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Teresa.
Simran, why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about the work that you do with your clients?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I really see myself as a bridge between where you currently are and where you would desire to go. And my superpowers are to help you to tap into your innate gifts, your own innate wisdom, so that you can live a life of more abundance, love, ease, flow. So we're leaving the programming of hustle, of bustle, of having to work hard, and really tapping into our gifts, our soul-given gifts that we really just embrace as we become more of ourselves. So that's in essence what I do. I'm helping people to tap into their sovereignty and live expanded lives.
Thank you. And so that leads me into our first topic of conversation, which is around the idea that, and as I stated in my intro to today's show, that we're not conditioned to look inward for our answers, that it's quite the opposite, that we are taught to look outward for guidance, for wisdom, whether it's in our teachers or spiritual leaders or parents or our friends. What do I think about? What do you think? What do you think? That we're, instead of the idea that we have all the answers within us, that we just need to learn how to be able to connect with it. And so I like to call it our spiritual self, although some people want to say it's intuition or gut instinct or that little voice inside you, but it is an aspect of ourselves that exists. Although I still people think it's weird and woo woo, but it is there. And so I'm just wondering if even, you have encountered people feeling a bit uncomfortable with the idea of going inwards for that guidance.
Yeah, that's a great actually segue in, because you're right that as society, we've been programmed to actually just try and look at answers for everything without. And I fully understand that I'm a guide here, right? So people come to me for advice.
Mm.
But the most important advice and the best advice that you're going to get, as you said, is from your inner self, um, your higher self. There are many, many different names. But just as society, we are used to handing our power away to something else outside of us. So when we're asked to tap into our own inner wisdom, we don't know how to do it because, as you said, we've outsourced solutions for our life to the church or religion or, the government or a doctor. And while everything has a place, ultimately, we need to get to a place within us where we actually learn, listen to our own guidance. Because actually, as you said, we all have it. And people think it's actually difficult. People think it's all about meditation and being super woo, but it's an inner voice, and it really is like an inner voice that we have, or it's a nudge, and we will all feel it in a different way, depending
Mhm.
on whether we're visual or whether we're audient, or whether we just have this felt sense. But our body is always speaking to us, and a lot of the times we go into our heads to find a logical answer for things.
Mhm.
And actually, what we're going to, I guess, speak about today is how to actually step out of the logical linear mind and tap into the heart and actually the innate wisdom of the soul. And that's not woo at all. It's actually just helping you come back into yourself and bringing all the sovereignty and power that we've actually handed over. A lot of times we might be
Mhm.
feeling powerless, helpless. I don't know what the answer is. I'm confused because we're looking outside.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for much, so much for saying that. I totally agree. And so, why don't we then start to go into the steps to how we can start to access that inner wisdom? Because, as we both said, many of us don't know how to do that, and it is unique for everybody. And so, some of the strategies, let's say, or steps that we're going to talk about today, may work for some, may not work for others, but it is important that we practice. That's one of the things that we're gonna mention, that it is important that, just because you try it one or two times and you don't hear anything doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It does exist,
Yeah.
but it does take consistency and practice and learning the ways that your body is communicating to you. Your spiritual self is communicating to you, your physical self. It's different for everybody how that communication works for you. So let's get into those first steps. So what would you say is that first way that we can start to look inward?
Well, I would say the first thing is really to have a desire, to set an intention, to say that actually I'm at this place in my life where I've tried a lot of stuff, right? Strategies. I have a therapist, I have a doctor, I have friends, but I'm feeling kind of lost. And I know that there must be something more. And when we set a clear intention that, okay, spirit, guide, higher self, show me the way, that is really a very important first step, because you already understand, you already sent like this energetic wish out into the universe, and I would call it coding your field, that when you have intention, you start the energy moving. So the universe conspires to work with you. And a lot of ways that we can do that is actually to start asking questions of ourselves, and not necessarily looking for an answer. So, one of the first tenets of spirituality is actually ask and it is given. And so often we feel like we can't ask. So, I would like you to get into the practice. Anyone who's looking to cultivate a deeper relationship with self is to set the intention and then ask questions. And the idea is not to find an answer, which is closing down possibilities. The actual potency is to open the realm of possibilities, and questions open up that realm. And then you kind of just leave it to your subconscious. So you might want to ask, what is the best step forward for me in my career right now? What would it take for me to be joyfully out of debt? What would it take for me to be magnetic to my most compatible divine life partner? What is the next step for me for my body to be in its optimum health? And you just leave it and you just wait. You go through your daily life and you will notice throughout the day that things stop popping into your mind. And that is one way to start cultivating this muscle of listening to yourself. And remember, we're so used to trying to find one solution, but that one solution can just shut down possibilities. So just get into the practice of asking questions and then noticing, becoming aware of what happens. You might see a signboard. You might see something come up as an ad. You might actually receive an email just with exactly what you need to hear for that day. Someone might call you and ask you or introduce you to something or someone. So always be open for the ways that the universe is speaking to you. And that sounds woo, but it's actually very practical. You can also write down these questions and just leave it open. And what we're trying to get you to do here is to get out of your linear mind and really start to open up the realms of consciousness for you so that you can actually become more aware of your surroundings. And as you become more aware of your surroundings, you're actually going to learn how to listen to the various messages that are around us at all times. Another super important thing, is awareness when we're trying to cultivate a deeper relationship with ourselves.
Yes,
So that's the
absolutely. Yes, and as you said, it says to ask and you shall be given, is that as spiritual beings given free will here on earth, spirit will not intervene unless we ask. And a lot of people don't know that, or we don't maybe even think of it in the moment to ask. You're struggling with something, you're like, oh my God, the ideas aren't coming to me. Oh my God, it's working. Is that in those moments, we have to remember that we need to ask for the help, because they won't interject because of our free will until we ask. So it's
right.
so important. I tell my children the same thing when they're struggling with a test or a question on an exam. It's just ask for the guidance, ask for the information to come to you, and then just sit and wait. And I think that, like that, with the whole thing of law of attraction, right? That's kind of bundled into the idea that we ask, but then we negate it, right? That, right? Well, and so when you said the second part is then, stepping into the awareness, there is a trust in that, right? To say, okay, I've
Absolutely.
now asked, I've put those questions out, and now I'm going to trust that the answer is going to come to me. But many of us, we get faltered in the trust part, where we're like, oh, I don't see anything. Oh, nothing's coming up. Oh no, nobody's helping me. So again, we're looking
Absolutely.
outside, right? So this is where yes, it can absolutely come into like signs and symbols on the outside that we could look for, because yes, they do. I receive signs and symbols outside, but there's a language inside. So let's go into some of those practices that we can do to prepare the body to go inward instead of us looking outward. So what are some of the ways that we can start to do that?
Yeah. Great. So, as we set our intention, we're starting to program our field, putting the questions out into the universe. And so then in order for us to receive our body, our vehicle of consciousness in this earthly realm, we need to be able to listen to the signals that we're getting. So how do we do that? One of the ways is to, again, sit, become still. And of course, one of the practices would be meditation. Now, there are many, many different types of meditation. And a lot of the times people get scared about meditation because they think it's like sitting in a lotus position and closing your eyes. And, there are many different types, transcendental, visualizations, sound meditations. The whole point is it doesn't really matter what meditation it is. You can even cultivate a very simple practice of for 5 minutes setting an alarm and just being still and focusing on the breath. And 5 minutes might seem like an eternity if you're not used to sitting still. But what we're trying to do is to stop the distractions of our daily lives and also the ways that we go into distraction in our minds, right? Because we try to get busy distracting ourselves from actually listening to our inner selves, our inner guidance. Or if you can, Joe Dispenza has amazing meditations. So that's another way that you can go in. You can go in by doing breath work. There's so many amazing tools that are free, that are on money. Google is your friend. You can Google calming meditations. You can Google yoga nidra. You can Google breath work. You can Google calming meditation for the vagus nerve. These are all very simple tools that are already available for you that don't cost money, and you will find something that you resonate with. And think of this as really a fun practice of trying different things out. It's like trying clothes. We want to see what fits us best, what suits us best. And the whole idea is that we get to really quieten our mind, and we might notice that there's incessant chatter. And the important thing is to not judge ourselves for this incessant chatter. Just look at it, observe yourself, your thoughts, feel the feelings that are coming up without making anything significant. Just watch them as if you're watching a cloud, you're at a cafe, just watching the world go by, and you're just noticing, right? So you're not trying to control or judge or fix, you're literally noticing. And you're then going to become hyper aware of your breath, of what it feels like to be in your body. Even if your eyes are closed, you're going to sense the room that you're in. You're going to become hyper aware of sounds. And this is a way to really slow down the brain waves. And as we slow down the brain waves, going into theta brain waves, alpha brain waves, we can then start to become more open to the subconscious mind. And you might want to also, in your meditation practice, just again, ask these questions. What's the next step forward for me that would help me bring in more money? What's the next step forward for me that would help me parent my child better? Sometimes a lot of things are on our plate. And the thing is just to put it into our meditations, to just put everything that's in our brain that we're trying to work out, phrase it as a question, and just let it go. And finally, you don't even just have to sit still. Another way of getting in touch with your body and connecting with yourself is go for a walk in nature, right? Go for a walk in nature. Either have headphones on or not. It's better to actually notice, to not have any distractions and literally hear nature. If you can, go for a walk, ideally every day, to literally use movement as a form of meditation. For me, I find that works really, really well. That when I move my body, I'm moving energy, and anything that's feeling stuck or stagnant, I would really suggest that you move your body, because that also is a practice of detoxifying. It moves the lymph. Lymph is very important for our health, for our immunity. And as our lymph starts to move, we start to feel better. So dance is also another amazing way to connect with the body. You put on, ecstatic dance is actually a thing. You can Google that as well. You can listen to devotional music, any kind of music that you like that gets you to move. And when you're actually moving, you're out of your head and it much less in your logical mind. So here are some really easy ways to learn to get quiet, get centered, and start to use that muscle of inner awareness. So I would say preparing your body and psyche is the next really important step of tapping into your inner wisdom.
So just before we go into, once we're tapped in, how do
Mhm.
how do we know it's speaking to us? Like how can we start to understand the language in which it may communicate to us? But just before I go there, I just want to say that there in many cases, many people feel uncomfortable being quiet, being with themselves, that they
Mhm.
need to be busy, they need to be around other people, because going inward can bring up some skeletons, some ghosts, some uncomfortable feelings, some emotional
Mhm.
scars, some of that. It
Mhm.
it it can do that when we start to remove the chaos and the distractions that many of
Mhm.
us involve ourselves in, because we don't want to go inward and start to feel some things that may be uncomfortable for us. So how would you help someone to overcome that feeling, to say, well, I actually don't like being by myself, I actually don't want to go inward, because it's been my experience that it starts to bring up some
Mhm.
emotions that I don't really
Yeah,
want, and I don't really
that
want to
is
feel, and I don't have time to deal with?
that's a really, really good question. Thank you for bringing that up. I would say the best way to get comfortable with getting still and having a relationship with yourself, because this is actually what we're doing. We're actually getting to know ourselves, right? And usually, some of the fears that would make that harder is when we don't feel safe to be just with ourselves, right? We use distraction and being super busy and outsourcing our solutions because actually doesn't feel safe to be on our own. And some of that might be linked to childhood memories of feeling unsafe, right? So a lot of what we can do is to remind ourselves, almost reparent ourselves when we're feeling these like icky, stuck, uncomfortable emotions. How would you speak to yourself if you were soothing a child, right? So it's like cultivating this internal self talk that is soothing, and to remind yourself, I'm not going into any trauma, I'm not going into an episode that is going to bring up a can of worms. I'm simply observing as a spectator, and I'm allowed to refocus my attention whenever I feel like to something that makes me feel better. It's safe for me to connect with myself, literally speaking to yourself as if you were a child. And I would say the inner child is such an important driver of a lot of our how our reality looks, a lot of our subconscious programs. So getting to cultivate ourselves and reparenting ourselves as a little child, notice how you're feeling in your body when you're sitting still or there's no noise around you. You might start to feel a little bit panicky, fidgety, and you literally say, even if I'm feeling uncomfortable right now, I'm here for myself. I'm not alone. And you maybe might want to imagine like stroking your hair or stroking your face. And you actually can physically do that while you're sitting. You might want to hug yourself, right? Soothe yourself as if you were a child and say, I'm here. You're safe. It's safe to speak to me. I'm going to be here with you as long as you need, right? Anything you might not have got that you needed as a kid, you can now give to yourself so that you're starting to get a relationship of trust with yourself. And we said that from the very beginning. How can I get to trust myself more? It's to be
Mhm.
ultra compassionate with all the parts that are fidgety or you feel are imperfect or are failing, right? You basically say, you can never do anything wrong in my eyes. And even if you can't sit still, it's not a big deal. You're doing your best, and that's more than enough. So, literally, this internal self talk, even as we're feeling these like icky, heavy, uncomfortable feelings, that will already start to shift things a lot, because what we're trying to do is to get our body to cooperate. So, when our body relaxes,
Mhm.
wisdom can
Yes.
drop in, right? So that's one of the ways that I find are really soothing for people who are starting out on this journey. And actually, at any point in our practice of going within, sometimes we really need to be in a calm state in order to be open. So, again, just lie flat on the ground, put a mask over your eyes, soothing music, take a bath before you do anything so that you're already telling your nervous system that you're calming down. Some rituals like this are really important so that your subconscious can connect that, okay, now it's safe for me to relax. Light a candle, put on music, shut down the lights. Create like a ritual for yourself so that you're teaching your body that you're now entering a safe space. So rituals can be really, really powerful as a way to focus and as a way to actually make this practice sacred for ourselves.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. All right. So now we've done all the right things. We're either meditating or we're in nature. We've quieted the mind enough. We've kind of the distractions are away. The nervous system is in check. We're breathing. And so now what is that communication going to look like? So with all the clients that you work with, I'm sure
Mm.
as you know, we both said that it is different for everybody. So what are some of the ways that we can start to listen to that wisdom? What is that communication going to be like?
So again, for lots of people, it's going to look, feel, taste different. And usually, already when we start to shut our eyes, so I would really recommend you close your eyes. So it's already a signal to go inwards. And a very simple way to kind of get answers and get to cultivate a feeling with your body giving you answers is to feel if something feels light or heavy, right? So you might have a question and you might want to say, well, is this job good for me? Right? Maybe you have a choice between jobs, careers. Um, you might want to say, is this the right job for me? And then you notice in your body, do you feel light or heavy in your body? And if something is light, it means, yeah, go forward, take the next step. If something is feeling heavy or you're feeling fidgety or uncomfortable, it might mean that maybe it's not the right time. Maybe there's some limiting beliefs that you might need to work through, maybe some internal blocks, or actually, maybe it's really not the right thing for you. So your body is constantly talking to you. Light heavy is a very easy tool to ascertain, like, should I just go forward with this? Or is there something that needs further investigation? So that's one way. Another way is to literally, again, ask the question and notice as your eyes are closed, are there any feelings coming up? Are there any symbols? Are there any flashes to any memories? Does sound come, like a music, a song come into your mind? Right? Another very fun tool that one of my clients uses is actually to ask the music. So she'll ask a question and she'll put on the radio or a soundtrack on shuffle, so that she's not aware of what song is going to come next, and she's going to listen to the lyrics of a particular song, which will have messages for her, right? So another fun way to tap into listening to messages is to ask the music. So ask a question, listen to what soundtrack is coming up, and notice if that has any meaning for you. So that is another way. And of course, you might just get awareness. And the most important thing here is to really uh, have patience with yourself. You're learning in a way a new sport, right? You're cultivating the muscle of self-trust. And like anything that we're starting out as, sometimes you're just going to say, well, I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything, right? Like, this is not working. This is not for me. And then again, go back to that little inner child and say, it's okay. Just give it a little bit of time. I'm going to sit here with you, and we're just going to wait here for 5 minutes, and we're just going to see what comes up. And if nothing comes up, that's fine. We're going to try again tomorrow. And it's to be very lighthearted about it, because when we're in expectation, and again, in a way, setting us up to fail, we set ourselves up to fail when we feel like we have to get it right, like from the get-go, right? That's a lot of pressure. And your awareness, your subconscious, doesn't work super well under pressure. It works super well when you're literally letting go, being in surrender. And this is really something as a society we don't know how to do. We've never been taught how to do it, is to go with the flow, like to witness, to notice. So again, some people are visual, they'll see images. Some people will hear sounds. So again, some people might want to listen to music. Some people go with smells, right? So one way to say, is this person good for me, for example, right? Is this person have the best intention for me? And you might get like a nasty smell. Something might not smell good, and there's a reason why it's called something smells fishy. It's like one of your senses is speaking to you and saying, well, kind of keep away from that, or you'll get a bitter taste in your mouth. Like, that's left me with a very bitter feeling, you might say. It's your sense of taste, which is also guiding you, helping you, or it's just annoying. You'll just say, no, that's not the way I want to go. This doesn't feel good. And you have to get used to what feels good and not good in your body. And so often we override what feels good and not good to us because we're so used to the hustle. Like, I have to work out. I'm going to work out 5 times a week, whether I'm tired or not. I'm just going to keep going. Right? Or I'm going to eat broccoli and fish no matter what, whether I like the taste or not. We're so used to being harsh with ourselves that we actually don't know sometimes what we want. So this is really a practice when we're talking about cultivating our inner intuition, even intuitive eating, because a lot of people don't know how to eat because we intuitively have never been taught. We follow a diet without listening to, does it actually feel good in our body or not? So it's, again, this sense of questioning and then listening to your body on how something feels. And the
Now,
final thing is to
Simran,
have discernment.
Unfortunately, this is like an amazing topic and so interesting, but we've run out of time for today. So if people want to connect with you after the show so they can learn more about some of the ways that they can tap into their inner self and inner wisdom, how can they connect with you?
Oh, thank you so much. They can find me on my Instagram at SSW Lifestyle, or on my website. Again, it's www.simransondhi, SIMRANSONDHI.com. I also have a lot of freebies on my website, and everyone here who's listening can sign up for a free womb healing meditation, ancestral womb healing meditation, if you just go onto my website. So I'm looking forward to connecting with you, and you get an idea of the kind of work I do on my social media.
Simran, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing more with us about the way that we can access our inner wisdom to live our happiest lives.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'd like to leave you with the thought for the day. Trusting our intuition, gut instinct, and higher self is not as straightforward as the expression implies, especially when we haven't been taught how to connect with that part of ourselves. In turn, we've developed certain habits and circumstances that cause us to look outwards for guidance. This can lead us in the opposite direction and away from the path of our happiest life. When we find ourselves compromising our own desires and needs for how we should behave or what we have to do, are the signs that we're seeing ourselves through the lens of rules and expectations that someone else has established for us. If your life feels chaotic, doors seem to close over and over again where you feel like you can't catch a break, and you feel as though you're off track, that's the time to stop and begin tuning in with your inner guidance system. Fortunately, our intuition is so deeply innate that even if we've been out of touch with it our entire lives, it's still waiting for us to connect with its wisdom. Learning how to listen to our higher self can help us to avoid toxic situations and personal or work relationships. We can become better at recognizing the signs the universe provides for us that will lead us in the right direction and lead us to the people who will help us to reach our goals and aspirations. Listening to your higher self will lead you towards your happiest life, where you can use your superpowers, your gifts, to create the life you came here to live. Thank you so much for being with me this week, and I look forward to seeing you next.